Sup? Though, my stomach still hurts. That's why I'm not eating no popcorn or anything during the video. Um, so yeah, I have to poop. That's all. I should have pooped before. I don't know why I didn't.
When I was about 20 years old, so about 6 years ago, I worked as a delivery girl for a pretty popular pizzeria in my area.
Right. Shouts out to Lito's Pizza, Domino's Pizza, Little Caesars. Um, Pizza is okay, but I would definitely choose Domino's over any. It depends on the area, cause I feel like Domino's isn't like in every state, but I know Lito's Pizza is not in every state. It's not. I think that's just a northern thing because Lito's is hands down. Like if you ever go like to the DMV area or anywhere up north, if you can get your hands on some Lito's pizza, it will change your life. Trust me on this one. But comment below and tell me what your favorite pizza place is.
Actually, I worked the late morning to mid-afternoon shift. But when the guy who delivered for the night shift ended up getting fired due to him losing his license because of a DUI, I was placed on the night shift, since my boss hired a family friend who could only work my shift for whatever reason. I didn't really want this shift, because you never know if people who order late at night actually want a pizza or if they have other intentions in mind.
Right.
Unfortunately, my boss was an asshole, and essentially told me if I wasn't willing to work the night shift, I'd be fired.
You got me. No.
I wasn't exactly in a position where I could be out of work, albeit temporarily, so I reluctantly agreed to work the shift. The first month of this shift went by without any issues, until I had to deliver a pizza to a house that just barely made our delivery radius.
Wow.
I punch it in on my GPS, and the house was located in a pretty suburban part of the city. I arrive, and it's about 11 p.m. The block was extremely quiet, decently lit, and mostly littered with modern townhouses, but the house I delivered to was a duplex. I ring the doorbell and wait for about 30 seconds. No answer. I ring it again and wait another 30 seconds, but still nothing.
Nah.
I'm standing there getting pretty nervous that something's about to go down.
Nah.
But thankfully a man opens the door. He looked like he was in his late 40s. He was pretty tall, maybe a little over 6 foot, and he was very skinny. I tell him his pizza is here, and he just stands there staring at me. I asked him if he was okay. Yeah, I'm fine, sorry. I got off work not too long ago, and I'm zoning out a bit.
Oh.
Fair enough, I suppose. He hands me the money. I hand him the pizza, and as I'm making change, he says, "You're really beautiful."
Oh.
You know that?
There it is.
Not really thinking too much into it, I thanked him for the compliment and gave him his change. I said goodnight, and he did too.
Alright.
I walked back to my car and finished my deliveries for the night. A few days later, I get a delivery order for the same place. I head over there around the same time as last time and ring the doorbell. He enters the door very excitedly. "Hey, it's you again. How are you?" I told him I was tired and couldn't wait to go home, to which he chuckled and said he knew that feeling pretty well.
He doing too much already. He doing too much. He's doing way too much. And some of y'all may think he not. Some of y'all may think he cool. Like he's just straight chilling. Some of y'all may be thinking like it's not wrong. It's not wrong right now. It's not wrong. But it's for the people that see the red flags. Y'all are the real MVPs. Shouts out to y'all. Hey.
As he's counting his money, he asked me what my name is. Being kinda tired at this point and not really thinking straight, I stupidly tell him the truth. As I'm making change, he asks if he could have my number, as he'd love to hang out with someone as gorgeous as I am. Hold up, buddy. Pump the brakes. I've literally only met this guy twice to deliver a pizza. I had no idea who this guy was, and I'm positive he barely knew who I was as well. Another thing to mention is that I look way younger than I was at the time. I was told by numerous people that I still looked like I was 15. I was just hoping he thought differently and wasn't hitting on someone he thought was a teenager. I'm just standing there awkwardly for a few seconds before I muster out that I have a boyfriend. He gets a little upset. We stand there in silence before I tell him to have a good night and walk back to my car. He says nothing and just stands in the doorway, staring at me until he finally goes back inside once I start my car.
Nah.
I got a pretty creepy vibe from this guy.
Oh, you did?
And even brought it up to my coworkers, and they agreed it was pretty spooky. All except for my boss, who overheard everything, and claimed I was making up stories and trying to gain sympathy for having to take the shift. A week later, as I'm working the night shift, we get an order from the same guy again, and this is when shit finally hits the fan. I arrive at the house at around 10:30 p.m., and keep in mind that from my perspective on the road, it didn't look like a single light in the house was on. I get out of my car, and I walk to the front door with the pizza box in my arms. As I'm approaching, it swings open to reveal the man, except this time he was wearing a suit. I jump back a little bit. Sorry I scared you. I saw you out the window and figured I'd just open the door now so that you didn't have to ring the bell. I was getting scared because, as I mentioned before, there were no lights on in the house, so he was sitting in the dark this whole time. And if so, why? I make a nervous laugh and say that it's okay. He asks me if I like his suit, to which I say yes. Would you like to go on a date with me tonight?
Nope.
What the fuck?
Keep it simple.
I once again tell him I have a boyfriend, to which he chuckles, gets close to me, and says, Honey, there's no way a girl your age is in a serious relationship. If you go on a date with me, I'll show you how a real man treats a girl. He grabs the pizza box from me and throws it to the side, and grabs my arms hard. I'm officially shitting bricks at this point, and trying not to cry from the fear that was overwhelming me. I start pleading with him. Dude, please, I just want to go home. I don't want to go on a date tonight. He just stares at me with the most sinister look I've seen on someone's face. I don't care. Get inside now.
Oh.
We're gonna have a good time. He starts trying to pull me into the house, and I'm trying to resist as hard as I can. After a bit of struggling, he lets go of one of my arms and starts grabbing something out of his pocket, which I presume is a knife. I did something that to this day I'm still thankful worked as he was doing that. I used my free arm to punch him as hard as I could in his stomach. This stuns him for a few seconds, and he loosened his grip on me, allowing me to break free. I quickly run to my car, and as I get in, he runs at me and tries pulling me out, holding the knife with the other arm. He even yells, "Why are you making this so difficult?" I grab a half-empty soda bottle I had in the cup holder and throw it. Luckily, it hits him right in the face, and he lets me go. I slam the door when all of a sudden he jumps right on the hood of my car and starts scratching and banging on my windshield with his knife. I put the car in reverse and quickly back out of the spot, reversing down the road with him desperately trying to hold on to my car. He's banging on my hood, screaming and yelling at me to stop the fucking car. I turn onto the next road as swiftly as possible, and luckily he falls off of the hood. I slammed the gas as hard as I could to get as far away from that sick bastard as fast as possible. I'm in a panic state. I drove a couple of blocks down the street and kept making turn after turn onto other side blocks in fear that I was being followed. Eventually, I reached a red light and I slammed on the brakes and just sat at the intersection, frozen from what had just happened. I began crying and violently shaking as I was sitting there. It dawned on me that I came so close to losing my life, and I couldn't help but feel like I shouldn't have been alive. Once the light turned green, I pulled over to the side and just sat there crying. Eventually, I get the energy to drive back to the pizzeria, and almost immediately after I walk in, My coworker knew something was wrong after seeing me. I practically broke down in front of him, and everyone else came to the front wondering what was going on. I fought back my tears and explained everything that had just happened. My coworker comforted me, and my boss surprised me and began apologizing profusely for what had happened and for putting me on the night shift in the first place.
It's your fault.
He took me into the office and handed me the phone to call the police. They arrive at the store and I give them my statement, as well as taking pictures of any marks on myself, as well as scratches on my car from the encounter as evidence. My coworker followed behind me as I drove home, and I collapsed on my bed. Strangely enough, I somehow managed to fall asleep. I quit the job the next day, and luckily a friend of mine managed to hook me up with a new job at her clothing store. As far as the psycho goes, 2 days later I receive an update from the police. The entire duplex is owned by the guy's brother, who lived on the right side with his wife, and the psycho lived on the left side of the duplex. I learned that he had been in and out of jail constantly at first for robberies and assaults, but later on it was for sex crimes. He had been released from jail about 5 months prior to this encounter for having sex with a minor. When they arrived at the house, he was long gone, and his family had no idea where he'd run off to. But the police insisted they would find him. And indeed they did, albeit not alive. I spent the next 2 months in fear that he would find me and finish what he had in mind, but the police contacted me and updated me on the case. Apparently he'd fled to another city nearby and attempted to kidnap a teenager walking alone at night on the street. Luckily, someone happened to be looking out the window at the right time, called the cops, and the police caught him trying to force her into his car. He managed to flee, and the police chased after him. He blew a red light near a busy boulevard, and a van slammed right into the driver's side of his car. And by some sort of miracle, the driver of the van only sustained minor injuries, while the psycho succumbed to his wounds long before the ambulance even got there. I thank the officers for everything they did, and for informing me as I walked out of the station. I walked down the street, and I light up a cigarette as I'm taking in everything I had just been told. I don't wish death on anyone, but after hearing about his, I felt relieved. I felt relieved that he couldn't hurt anyone anymore. I was relieved that I would never have to encounter him again, and that I wouldn't have to go through with charging him and reliving what happened that night. My last experience 2 years before this was scary, but I think this one takes the cake as being the scariest, as I was alone face to face with a psycho. Who knows where I'd be if he managed to pull me into his house.
Something. See? Some of y'all don't believe me. Something always happens during the night shift. Night shift. Always. Always happens. I don't care if it's small. I don't care if it's big. Something happens. Something happens during the night shift. And earlier when I said this is your fault, I meant like the manager, not the girls. Well, okay. She has a little small percentage in her clocking up, right? But it was the manager's fault. I would have, bruh, in that situation, if that ever happened to me, I would have came back to that place and I would have said, cluck this. Cluck all of this. I'm out. Deuces. It takes one time. If that.
When I was 18, I got a job at Walmart. Small town, so not much else there for someone fresh out of high school.
Don't do that.
I'd been there about a month and worked in the jewelry department, usually from mid-afternoon until the department closed at 9 p.m., and I would close the department myself.
Right.
But obviously, Walmart is open 24 hours, so other people were always around.
Man.
One night, I'm locking the cases up and putting things away, and an overnight stalker walks by and says hi. I look up and smile and say hi back, then go about my business. This guy, the only way I can describe him is to say he looks like one of the Bee Gees.
Right.
Shoulder-length frizzy hair, kind of a bouncy hop in his step when he walked. Mid-50s. This started to become a regular thing. On nights I closed by myself, he'd walk by and say hi, and I would say hi back. That's it. No conversations ever took place. And then on my birthday, a few of my friends who worked there got me a cake, and I hugged them and said thank you. About an hour later, Mr. Bee Gees comes around with a birthday card and gave it to my manager to give to me. The manager thought it was extremely funny that this weirdo got me a card, until I opened it. Happy birthday. I saw you hugging those guys earlier. It made me really mad, but I called a friend and talked it out, and he made me realize you're allowed to have other friends than me.
What?
Just please don't hug them anymore.
Whoa.
Save those hugs for me.
Whoa. 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 Wait a minute. You good? I don't know. Talk to me. I'm here. What do you need? I don't know. It's okay. It's all right. It's all right. We gonna get through this.
I don't know what kind of emotion showed on my face, but my manager grabbed the card and read it, then walked me back to the store manager's office and showed it to him. Store manager said the guy was obviously joking, but that he would talk to him about it. I didn't see Mr. Bee Gees for about a week, until one night while I was closing, he plunked down a stuffed envelope on my counter as he walked by without saying a word. Inside it was 6 pages front to back of pure crazy. It was basically his entire life story, all about his family and the schools he went to, but with weird stuff like how his sister was a psychic and his father was an exorcist and all sorts of weirdness.
Wow.
The end of the letter was about how his friend who was 18 months old was missing, and he knew she was being raped because he could hear her screaming his name in his dreams. So that also went to the store manager, and he had me write a written complaint. He told me not to go outside by myself, and not to wander near where the guy might be while I'm on my breaks. No, just get rid of him. 2 nights later, I was finishing up for the night, and the way the counter is set up, there's one opening, and the counters go all the way around both sides. He brought a hand cart around with boxes for my department, but pushed it into the only opening in the counter, so I was trapped inside. He just stood there and stared at me, while I looked at him with what I'm sure was terror. I was then, and still am now, ruled with anxiety. I don't like confrontation, and the last thing I wanted was for this weirdo to confront me about me reporting him twice. He whispers, "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you."
Yes, you did.
I turned around and started finishing my closing tasks, pretending he wasn't even there, though I could feel him staring at me. After a few minutes, I just looked at him and said, "Weren't you told to stay away from me?" He gave me this gross predator grin and said, "The store manager asked me if I was joking." I told him I was. Then he leaned in as close to me as he could get with the counter between us and whispered, "But I'm not joking." Then he walked away. For 2 weeks after that, he would randomly show up wherever I was. I would leave for lunch and he would be there, even non-workplaces. I would go to the mall and he would be there.
Damn. Oh.
Another department manager told me he'd been reported by 4 other people over the last 2 years for very similar behavior. I again went to my store manager, who told me the guy was harmless and maybe had a little bit of a crush. He was in his 50s.
A little bit?
And I was
50s.
18 or 19 during all this shit.
Jeez.
A week later, I gave my notice and quit. He still works there, 13 years later. Still gives me the heebie-jeebies.
50, 19. Wow. Wow.
During my first and only semester of college, my very good friend Jake was dating this girl Stacy that we knew in high school. For reference, I'm female, and I was 18 at the time.
Right.
Now 26.
Okay.
Now many people back in high school didn't like Stacy, and I was one of them. To me, she was the definition of a sketchy person.
Right.
She was a pathological liar, and not even a good one, as her stories rarely added up, and she would constantly contradict herself, sometimes within minutes after she spouted a lie. She was one of those girls that hated drama, yet it always magically seemed to follow her around anywhere she went. She was constantly in and out of relationships through high school, and would go out of her way to prove they were crazy by spreading rumors about them, and getting as much sympathy from everyone around her as she could. She always had to be the center of attention wherever she went. I remember during prom night, she was dancing with her then boyfriend when he accidentally stepped on her foot while dancing, and she caused a huge scene about how he was physically abusing her. It was painful to watch. And there's so much more I could get into about this chick, but in general, she's just an extremely toxic person who nobody should be subjected to be in the presence of.
Right.
It's worth noting that she had a drug problem that she often tried to hide.
Wow.
And this will come into play later. Anyway, back to the story. Jake and Stacy had a class together and hit it off rather quickly. Jake was skeptical at first, but when Jake brought up her reputation in high school, Stacy claimed that she was raped by an ex-boyfriend she had, and that's why she acted the way she did, and that she worked on getting better and was fine now. My friend, being incredibly insecure about being single, and being way too trustworthy, believed her, and they began dating soon after. The relationship was extremely dysfunctional, and was rampant with emotional abuse and manipulation on her end. But the aspect I want to focus on was her constantly trying to squeeze money out of him, and her aforementioned drug problem. Stacy would constantly ask Jake for small amounts of money here and there, usually ranging between $10 to $20. Jake didn't mind all that much, as he bought into her story of her struggling financially, so he felt bad. But one day, she asked for $500 to cover her rent, which he refused. She flipped out on him and didn't talk to him until she drunk dialed him late one night, and began revealing that she was doing drugs, and it was all because of how terrible her life was and that he wasn't helping. I don't know why he didn't break up with her there and then, but the next day they talked it out and made up, and the issue was dropped. Here's where everything finally comes to a head. It was around 10:30ish on a Friday night, and keep in mind they've been dating for nearly 2 months at this point. I'm chilling in the living room with another friend of mine. We're sitting on the couch bullshitting about stuff going on in our lives when I get a call from Jake. He explained to me that Stacy was hanging out at a friend's house for the day, and asked him if he could come pick her up at around midnight, as the buses in that area stopped running after 8, and she needed to be at work at 9 the next morning. He said sure, and as the time he needed to leave to pick her up drew closer, his mother called him saying she was working overtime and wouldn't be out until midnight, and she had the car. He asked if I could drive with him to go pick Stacy up. Now, I'll admit I would have rather left her to her own devices, but he sounded desperate, and he's an amazing friend who would do anything for me. So I did him a solid and told him to start walking over to my house. He gets to my house about 40 minutes later. My friend went back to her house. She lived across the street from me, and Jake and I get in my car. He texts her that he's leaving now, and that I was driving him, to which she replied with the dreaded K. We reached Stacy's friend's house, which was located on the outskirts of a town in a pretty sketchy neighborhood. The road was poorly lit, and to my luck, the streetlight in front of Stacy's friend's house was out. I refused to park in front of there, as I didn't feel comfortable sitting in the dark, so I parked 3 houses down between 2 cars under a functional streetlight. Jake texts Stacy that we're here. She doesn't respond. As we're waiting there, a truck drives by, and I notice about 4 men in the vehicle. I think it was an Oldsmobile. They looked like they were looking around for something. At first, I figured maybe they were lost and looking for an address, but this thought was thrown out the window when not even 2 minutes later, the truck drives by again, and this time slower.
Sometimes you just don't think, and you just need to run. Some people need to stop. Sometimes people just need to stop thinking. Stop second guessing. Just go with your gut instinct, and just haul it. Kick rocks. That's it. Like, stop thinking so clucking much, man. Can you do that for me? Huh? Can you do that for me? Why did I say that like that? That was weird. But yeah, stop with all this thinking. If you're gonna think with your feet. Think with your Adidas. Think with your legs. Think about how fast you can get away from this motherfucker, right? Stop thinking with your brain and think with your feet. 2018.
And the front passenger seat makes direct eye contact with me as the truck passes my car by.
Direct?
I told Jake something is definitely wrong, and to call Stacy so we can leave. He agrees and calls her, and it's dead quiet outside so I can hear the conversation. She answers and says, "Hey, where are you?" "We're down the block. Come outside." "I'm looking outside and I don't see your car," she answered back. "We're in my friend's car. It's a gray Subaru," Jake said back, and almost immediately after he says that, the phone call drops. Jake just looks at his phone in complete confusion, wondering what the hell is going on. I'm starting to get extremely nervous now, because between both the truck that was circling around before and Stacy's sketchy behavior, I decide something's up. I'm not just going to be a sitting duck and stay parked on the road if shit goes south. I pull out of the spot to drive up in front of the house, and as I'm pulling out, I hear a vehicle loudly in the distance behind us. I look in my rearview mirror to see the truck from before, now turning quickly and driving up the block. I freak out and floor it out of the spot and begin speeding up the block. The truck catches up with me, and Jake yells at me to turn and that they're trying to shoot at the car. To my horror, I look behind me, and the man in the back seat is leaning out the window with a gun in his hand, aiming at our vehicle. I quickly turn and floor it down the road as they struggled to mirror what I did. I made another left turn, narrowly missing an oncoming car, and slammed the gas. Luckily, I'm halfway down the block by the time they turn onto it. I'm surprised I was driving as well as I was at the time. Jake said I looked extremely calm and determined during all of this, but internally I was freaking out. I was worried they were gonna run me off the road. We were gonna get a bullet shot through the back of our heads. I made another left turn and drove like a bat out of hell towards the highway. The truck turned onto the block when I was about a block down, but stopped and turned down another when I got close to the highway. I turn onto the highway and merge into the next lane. A few minutes pass with us going back and forth, questioning who those guys were and what they wanted, until Jake gets a phone call from Stacy. He picks it up and puts it on speaker, shakenly saying hello. "Where are you? I'm fucking waiting for you," she screams. He explains the situation, to which she proceeds to call him a liar and says he's not actually there and was standing her up. Jake loses his shit and screams at her that we almost got killed and calls her out on her bizarre behavior through all of this. She starts yelling again, but she goes silent and we hear a door quickly open. Someone loudly yells in the background on the phone, "They got away! Stacy, where the fuck are you?" Silence follows this for a few seconds before she hangs up. Jake and I look at each other. She had something to do with this. Long story short, we spent the entire drive theorizing about why this happened, and we think we may have hit it on the head. Jake brought up her asking for money before, and when she asked for $500, she probably needed the money to pay off a dealer. When she didn't get it, she had to find another way. We think she set us up to head to that house to pick her up, and those guys who were probably the dealer and his buddies would conveniently show up looking to rob us. Possibly also jacking the car and hoping it would cover her debt. She probably thought Jake was using his car, and gave them the description of that, not realizing we were using mine, which might explain why they circled around the block in confusion, and why she hung up the phone immediately after Jake gave her a description of my vehicle. She probably called them to update them. I dropped Jake off at his house and went home. I know people say after scary encounters that they're always shaken up, and their emotions are running in a million directions, but I was just drained. I felt like I just couldn't feel anything, and just wanted to go home and go to bed, which is what I immediately did when I got there. I filed a police report the next morning on those guys, and they said they'd look into it, but I never heard anything after I filed the report, so who knows what they've been up to ever since. As far as Stacy goes, our theory was further solidified when Jake saw her in class on Monday, where she approached him and berated him for Friday night, claiming she had walked all the way home and had her phone and wallet stolen by some druggies. Jake basically called her out on the whole night, claiming she set us up to get robbed, to which he denied and called him crazy. He told her they were done, and she yelled and walked back into the room. The druggies were probably the dealer and his friends who robbed her over the debt. To our surprise, she never attempted to contact us again and kept her distance, probably because she knew we were onto her and wanted to keep the heat off her. After I dropped out, I never saw her again, and the last I heard anything about her was from Jake, where he told me she developed a long-distance relationship with some guy online and dropped out halfway through the semester to move to Massachusetts to live with him.
Oh.
As far as I know, that was the last anyone I know ever saw or heard from her. Overall, I'm happy I trusted my instincts and picked up on the fact that something was wrong, as this encounter might have had a different outcome. In hindsight, they most likely weren't going to kill us, but that's easier to say after the fact, because at the time we didn't know what their intentions were, and for all they know, they may have even had more planned than to just rob us. This was the first of quite a few scary and creepy experiences I've had in my life, and this actually wasn't even the scariest one of them. But that's another story for another time.
Is he gonna say it? Is he gonna say it?
What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave feedback in the comments below, as well as perhaps like, share, or subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you have a personal story that you'd like to submit, or you'd like to just send me a message, links to all of my social media will be in the description for the video below. This includes my Gmail, Twitter, and Facebook accounts. Go ahead and send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the tagline what the theme of the story is, if it has any, the name of the story, and how you would like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. If you're curious at all about the music used in this video, the music is always listed in the description below, in the order which it appears. I also have links to the artists and list the tracks by name, just in case you want to find more of their work. Last but not least, if you have any criticism, please be sure to leave it in the comments below, as I'm always looking for new ways to improve the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Same as you, same as you, same as you. Right. But see, it's weird because people, you don't really think about creepy people. And yeah. Wow, why did I say yeah about 6 different times? But you don't really think, when you think about weird people or like creepy people, you think about like just strangers and stuff like that. At least that's what I think of, right? I think of like complete strangers and how creepy they are. Some of them are, but like for me, when I think about creeps, I don't really think about the place that I work at. Because it's the place that you work at, so it's like, I mean, I don't know, like, I would say, the place that you work at would be the last place that you ever think about creeps, but, I think the last place you ever think about is at your house, yeah, but, your job, I wouldn't expect creeps at my job. Not the people that I work with. Like, that's crazy. The people, see, I don't want to talk about this because I don't know if she's, oh, man. I don't know if she's gonna watch this though. Oh my God! I don't know if she's gonna watch this, so I don't want to talk about nobody. But all right, so I'm not gonna talk. Should I? Nah. But best believe me, there's a she's not creepy. Yes, this is she. She's weird, but like the things that she says is creepy. I don't know if that makes her creepy, but I mean she does some creepy stuff. I'm not gonna say what. I'm not gonna. I'm not. You know. I'm just gonna stop it right then and there, because the next time I work, there are several people at my job that know I do YouTube. I make YouTube videos, and I don't know how often they watch my videos, but I'm gonna be on the safe side, and I'm not gonna say no names. I'm just gonna stop the story right then and there, because if I go into detail, next time I work, I guarantee you there's gonna be some questions. I'm guaranteeing you, like, yo, who are you talking about? No. Are you talking about me? No, I'm not. No, don't worry about it. Don't. I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about you. I could be, but I'm not. See, that's the problem. That's yeah. You don't want to do that. Yeah. Coming from experience, you do not want to say something on your social medias with about somebody, and that person is the same person like you talked about that you work with. You don't you don't want to do that. You don't want to start problems. But yeah, I guess that just goes to show you, because with the Walmart one, this was Walmart, right? Oh, not Walmart. Yeah, Walmart. Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, Walmart and all that, like, or just like in general, just be on the lookout, because creeps, weirdos can come in all forms, shapes, and sizes. You know, they can be in your neighborhood, you know, at school, where you work, um, yeah, in the next neighborhood. They could be possibly in your house. You don't know until you start like putting pieces together. You start figuring out what the red flags are. And shouts out to the people that don't, I mean, like, that pick up on signs, that pick up on the red flags way before, uh, you know, before you get it before anybody else, you know. Like, I'm pretty good at picking up red flags way before anybody else can pick up on red flags, you know. But that just goes with like experience and common sense, and just putting pieces together, you know. But yeah, be always, if you took anything from this video, always, no, I keep getting that mixed up. Wow, okay, that's okay. Back up, slow down, relax. All right, it's because I haven't eaten yet and I'm hungry. And whenever I'm hungry, I start, like, my mind and my mouth are on two totally different things right now. But if you haven't taken anything away from this video, take this, right? Always be cautious of your surroundings. Be mindful that there are weirdos out there, above and beyond. It could be one right next to you. You don't know. You know, the person that you're watching this video with, they could be a creep in a bad way. They could be a weirdo, you know, in a bad way. There's always two sides of it. You know, like I said, I'm a weirdo, but in a good way. In a good way. There's always a good weird and a bad weird. There's no in between. You're either one or the other. And everybody's weird. Everybody is weird. Don't think nobody. No. If you're If you're normal, you're weird. Just keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you. Stay happy, my family.